Hey, what's up? How's it going? I wanted to um, talk a little bit about specialization, division of labor, and how that relates to all that we've been talking about, the surrender and all that, the control. So, in the model of the social units, macro social units, micro social units, as technology increases, micro social units, household units, decrease in size, macro social units increase in size, both seeking more and more control of their environments. With that comes specialization and division of labor. What that means is that you become more and more specialized. And so labor roles become more and more specialized and divided amongst many different parts. So what you do, it becomes very, very specialized in one certain area. And it reminds me a lot of, so that's what happens to the human species as a whole. The development of one human being, something similar happens when you're a baby. When you're a kid, everything's general. You can see general things. You can't differentiate certain things from others. You can't. Everything seems to be similar. And as you grow older and older, you start to differentiate more and more. And yeah, I mean, in everything. So if, like my daughter, she draw, like 2 years ago, she drawed very general, right? Now she draws a little better. She's starting to notice certain details and things. In 2 more years, 3 more years, she's going to even draw more specialized, more detail, more detail. The social aspect, they're friends with everyone. They don't differentiate. Everyone's the same. Everyone's friends. They play with everyone. They meet kids on the playground. They talk to anyone. As they grow older, they start differentiating. They start choosing and selecting and becoming more picky. And, it seems very similar to me, those certain aspects as we grow older and we start to gain consciousness. So it's not technology, but consciousness, which becomes similar. But it's the same thing. We are trying to establish control over our environment. And so the evolution of the human species is very similar to the evolution of one human being in one lifetime. But what happens when so that's been the cultural tendency throughout the last thousands of years, 10,000 years, whatever you want to call it, 5,000 years. Always more and more specialized, always more and more division of labor, households getting smaller and smaller, macro social units, governmental structures, power structures getting bigger and bigger, monopolies getting bigger and bigger. All right. So what happens when we make the switch? When the awakening happens, when the cultural revolution happens, when the new covenant, that's one road, but in general it's the surrender, and then it's that surrender of that control. of the external world. And we can see that control in everything that we do, that specialization, that even in our intellectual nature, in trying to find the truth and trying to do all this and you get more and more detail oriented, you get more and more, and then it just becomes like an obsession, like perfectionism becomes like an obsession of control. And when we surrender that control, then nice things start happening to you internally. Because when you have an obsession, like perfectionism, sometimes it keeps you in jail. Like you can't find it, you can't seek it, you can't unlock the magic. This happens with artists, this happens with athletes, this happens with everything. The surrendering of that control and just letting it go, having fun, or finding peace internally and just letting it go, letting the spirit move through you, and not trying to control everything, not overthinking everything. That seems like just a theme that you can see across many different many different aspects of life, in athletics, in artistry, in anything that you're trying to perfect. There comes a point where you hit like a wall, because you get more, if you're obsessed on a result, on an external result, you're obsessed on an external result, and you forget about your interior, then you get more and more and more control oriented, and you're trying to get it, and you never get it. Because your inside is not in peace, and you can't, it's just, you think you never get it. And that's kind of the gist of it. But what is going to happen to specialization and division of labor once that transformation happens in our hearts as well? Is technology going to diminish, or are we going to continue with more technological advances? It seems in my heart and in my intuition that we're going to continue with more technological advances, because that's the switch we need to take that next step. It seems like there's so many technological advances and so much goodness and so much progress economically, socially, politically that can be made when we have love in our hearts, when we make that surrender of that control of the external world, and we surrender to God and unconditional love. Then technology is not going to lower. It seems like, this is speculation, because it's future. We don't know how love is going to play itself out. We know what we have to do, but we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. So this is speculation, but it seems to me like, just like a great artist, when he surrenders and he lets go and he just starts to express himself freely with love in his heart, then great things happen, magic starts happening, and the same thing can happen in our world. We know there's been great inventions that have been stifled by big corporations, or bought out by big corporations, because they want to keep control of certain sectors of the economy. We know that for sure. There's documented things of that. So it seems like there is a lot of this control on a macro level and on a micro level is keeping us bubbled in. Like, it's not allowing us to progress anymore. It's not allowing us to advance to that next level that we're supposed to be at. And I think the same thing happens in the life of one human being. once you become a teenager and your ego starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you think you're the king of the world and you can do anything and you don't listen to anyone, and you become rebellious in certain ways and you just do your own thing. Like consciousness is growing, you're becoming more and more independent. And then you have to make certain decisions. And it just seems like human beings also hit a wall of progress. And if they're not in the right mindset, in the right state of being, and in the right, if they don't develop these principles, these eternal principles, these universal principles of surrender, of unconditional love and of faith, of keeping that faith, it seems like they hit a wall, or they keep on trying and trying and trying and trying to fulfill something that can't be fulfilled without the surrender, without the love. And that's where the fulfillment happens. And you're never 100% fulfilled, but that's where you feel like you're on the right path, like you feel like you're making progress, like it feels right, it feels good, you're at peace, your conscience is clean, things are good in your life. So it's just a weird phenomena, comparing one life to the life of the human species as a whole and the evolution of both. They're very similar, they're very parallel. And they give us clues as to the development of each. But the specialization, division of labor, it's hard to predict what's going to happen when our shifting consciousness happens. That's what I'm just still trying to figure out. I think that decentralization will definitely happen when the shift happens, because now centralization is what's happening in general, like concentrations of power, and not decentralizations of power happening in the world in general, like the new world order type deal. Like they're becoming more and more concentrated powers, monopolies, oligopolies. It's just becoming more and more concentrated, and that's because we are doing the same thing on a macro level. We're the cause of all that. It's the spirit of the culture. It's the spirit of control of the external world. But when we've talked about this, of surrendering that control and all of that, but what's going to happen though? Once we do that, how is it going to manifest in the physical world? It's just fun little games trying to predict what will happen. But I definitely think decentralization will happen. But I don't know if specialization will continue or not. And division of labor, I'm not real sure on that. It might be that it doesn't continue more and more, but we might see it technology continue to flourish more and more as cooperation. See, once we switch from competition to cooperation, we're going to see huge advances in just everything, I think. Poverty will be gone. We'll just begin to flourish as human beings, where we change from survival mode to just service mode, and to cooperation mode, and to fulfillment mode, because survival is already taken care of. Survival is just a given. And so when we're not worried about survival, we're not worried about protection, we're not worried about survival, we become liberated of that need. And once we don't have that need, other things start flourishing in us, creativity and great things start happening. So I think definitely technology is gonna like flourish, but we're also gonna see communities flourish. And we're also it might be specialized communities, like each community will have their specialized interests. Like, you know, the skiers, the snowboarders, the skaters, the gamers, the soccer players, the musicians, the all different types of, hobby-like things will start to become maybe specialized communities. I don't know. We'll see. It's yet to be seen. But cooperation is definitely going to take over the hearts and minds of humankind. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. And it's just great because what happens with perfectionism, and that need to always go fast, speed, control, especially at work. There's a lot of pressure to always do that. Productivity. You're forcing everything so much. You're just doing fast. And that need for that type of control and perfection translates into an external and internal judge as well. So you start becoming used to everything being perfect around you, and you need that, like you expect that from everyone, and so you become very judgmental of everyone. If everyone's not like you, like perfect and does everything in that way, you start judging everyone, and you start needing everyone to be that way as well. And so it creates a lot of just division, because you can't unite with anyone, because you're always in control mode and perfection mode. And judgment, that's what judgment is. And you're basically, I think you're judging yourself, like you're being harsh on yourself, because you're not allowing yourself to just let go of that control. There's no need for that control. There's no need for it. But we all think that somehow there is a need for that. And so we have to not force things. That's the new covenant. We have to not force things. That's the giving up of that control. It's not forcing. It's breathing. It is not forcing things and allowing things to flow. Allowing love in your heart. Allowing peace in your heart. Allowing yourself that peace of mind as well, of not having to control everything mentally as well. I'm just letting go. And that will lead us to unification with other people as well. That's keeping us isolated. It's just that control, speed. Intellectualism, control everything, try to figure everything out, getting so specialized, getting so detail-oriented, getting so caught up in the details. And once we take a big breath, doesn't mean don't work, doesn't mean be lazy. That's not it's quite the opposite. When we allow things to, because this perfectionism wears on you. This control mode wears on you. Everyone becomes tired, exhausted all the time. And then you need external sources to keep it going. You need drugs, you need prescription drugs, you need this, you need your coffee, you need your caffeine, you need your this, you need your, everything to keep on going and going and going, because you can't do it. But when you let it flow, when you let that go, you should be able to work, and then you'll start working at things you would think that you like, and you start enjoying more your work. And that's kind of the transformation, right? But yeah, I still struggle with that at work, because I've always been that way, of like perfectionism at work. Not when I'm off at work, but when I'm at work, I struggle with that. But I'm getting better. I think we're all getting better all the time. But consciousness will take us there. I'm just trying to follow that surrender on a daily basis. I think I've rambled too much tonight. I'll see you.